Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jonathan King. I'm with the Texas Department of Information Resources. I've been with DIR for about 4 years now. Before that, I was a Deputy Chief of Plans for the Texas Division of Emergency Management, working incidents such as Harvey, starting all the way back to Bastrop 1 in the State Operations Center. Before that, I was a volunteer firefighter in the city of Bernie, so really got to see the progression from being on the end of the fire hose, being on the fire truck, seeing the preparedness functions for chlorine gas release and things of that nature in our water and wastewater utilities, all the way up to the cybersecurity side. So very happy to be here, y'all. Big shout out to our emergency management friends in the back, who we've spent more days in the State Operations Center with than we probably have with some of our family members. But I'm here to introduce a great group. I'm going to pass this over in good fashion to my boss, Jeremy Wilson. Jeremy Wilson is our Deputy Chief Information Security Officer for the state of Texas, and he oversees several programs including incident response, regional security operations centers, threat intelligence, and other functions. So thank you all for being here. I encourage some collaboration and look forward to today. Jeremy?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you everyone for being here. I'm glad Mike addressed the elephant in the room. We do have a video recorder, but as he said, this is a tabletop exercise. So there's a lot of times where there's discussion points where we'll kind of cue you up, and we're hoping that you guys, feel comfortable talking about any incidents you've experienced, any cybersecurity challenges and other things, because that will make it a much more interactive program and process. And so we're really proud and excited to be here today. I know he also mentioned there's going to be feedback. To be fair, we've done a lot of tabletops over the last several years since we formed the CERT, the Cybersecurity Incident Response Team that reports to me. We've done tabletops with all kinds of state agencies, with higher ed. But the longest one we've done up to this date has been 2 hours, and we haven't had one recorded. So this is going to be an interesting exercise. And like I said, we have a lot of time built for there to be discussion points. We're also planning on taking about a 5-10 minute break every hour so people can get up, stretch their legs, use the facilities. So with that, I'll kind of jump into the slides. The security of cyber physical systems is not about the security of a single system, it's about the security of society. And I know you guys understand that. Similar to cybersecurity, water touches everything. If water's not available, everything's going to stop. So it's very important. Our executive director, Amanda Crawford, likes to say that cybersecurity is a team sport. It's too much. It's too daunting for one single person to do on their own. So I hope as we kind of go through this, you guys will see that we've tried to boil things down at a level where, cybersecurity can seem daunting if you're not familiar with it. But at the end of the day, there's some simple things you can do, and there's some no-cost and low-cost solutions and opportunities out there for you to improve your cybersecurity program. So the session, some of the goals, it should help demystify cybersecurity concepts and provide an overview of past incidents. You will see real-life scenarios and how threats affect peers and partner organizations. We have seen foreign actors, to include the cyber army of Russia, impacting water systems here in Texas. So we'll kind of talk about some of those incidents we have. And again, if you guys have any stories, that's going to help us just have a better experience. You'll better understand the issues, learn practical steps to and tackle them. And we'll conclude with a hands-on tabletop exercise to provide practical experience. You should leave the session with an overview of cybersecurity and its significance and implications for water system operators. We talked about knowledge of real-life cybersecurity incident scenarios that illustrate potential impacts, an understanding of steps to take to address key security issues, and the ability to apply knowledge to develop initial incident response plan for their organization, as well as hands-on experience participating in a tabletop exercise. So one of the things that, we do a lot of presentations, as I mentioned, and like I said, cybersecurity can seem really complex, but at the end of the day, it's about people, process, and tools. And the people, I always say, are the most important. They're the ones that we need multiple people watching things and working together as a team. The process, that can be things such as documentation, plans. We talked about incident response plan. That's just time it takes to document your processes. And the tools, there are, cybersecurity tools and other tools can be expensive, but there are a number of low cost and no cost opportunities that we provide through the state. So hopefully you guys will have a better understanding of that. Again, the incident response plan. Incident response plan might seem like something that's really hard if you don't have one, But at the end of the day, most government organizations have some kind of disaster recovery or continuity of operations plan. An incident response plan isn't that different. We have templates, they're built specifically for your use case that fills in kind of all the state requirements of who to contact. There's a shell of a plan, and then you just kind of populate it with your contact info, your data. And so we'll kind of talk about the best way, if you don't have a cybersecurity incident response plan, how to document that stuff, because it is so much easier to do that ahead of time, identify roles, have people's cell phones, all those kind of things, rather than trying to do it in the middle of an incident. So that will be another, I think, key benefit of what we're going to get after today. And then next to my team, I'll let them say a little bit about themselves. As far as me, I've been at DIR for 11 years. I was also in the U.S. Army. I did 25 years of total service, 11 years on active duty. Started out in the infantry, and then when I became an officer, I switched over to the Signal Corps, which is communications and cybersecurity, and I got to kind of get some exposure to that when I was over in Iraq and some things. I actually ran the cybersecurity program at Camp Mabry for a while in Austin before I came over to the state, so that's how I kind of got interested in cybersecurity. And again, it might seem super complicated, but when you think about it, there's a lot of things that you guys already know about physical security, disaster recovery planning, continuity planning. It's not that different. We're going to kind of take it down a notch and make sure you understand it. And for those that do feel comfortable, I hope you're going to walk away from this with even more knowledge and understanding. Dennis, you want to stand up, say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, Dennis Brown, just like Jeremy, Army experience. I was in the Army for 22 years. My introduction to cybersecurity is when I was stationed I got stationed in Fort Belvoir at Army Cyber Command. And that place was pretty intimidating. It was set up like the Star Trek ship. They had the doors where you had to badge in and they slid open. Very intimidating. And after about 6 months there, I had to put a sign up on my desk that says, "I am not a geek." So when people come to ask me questions, I would just point at the sign, "I'm not a geek," just understand that first, and then we keep talking. Cybersecurity is basically, it's common sense at the end of the day, right? You might not know all the technical things, but common sense. Just like your home, you lock your doors, make sure your windows are locked, and do the practical steps needed to make sure things are safe and secure. So I look forward to talking to you all today.
Well said, Dennis. Thank you. And Richard?
Richard Morris. I'm going to be hitting 2 years with DIR. Prior to that, I was IT security analyst, information security officer for the Office of Court Administration. So I spent about 18 years with the judiciary and other state entities throughout the state of Texas. I'm the oddball in the group. I'm a prior service member with the U.S. Air Force, so a little bit of pride on that. So these guys kind of like give me a hard time. But yeah, I'm a senior CERT analyst, threat researcher, so I do a lot of the research into attackers and things like that. So I'm really looking forward to working with you guys today, and hopefully if you guys have any questions, we'll be able to answer those for you. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, so you'll hear from all the group. We're going to take turns so you don't have to listen to me talk for 3 hours. That would not be great. And this is about half of the cybersecurity incident response team that we have at DIR. This team was formed 2 legislative sessions ago. Senate Bill 475 gave us the authority to create our own cybersecurity incident response team, as well as some of the other programs Jonathan mentioned, our Regional Security Operations Center program, our Volunteer Incident Response Team, and some other programs we manage. But I'm really proud of the team. One of the key things we do is deliver tabletop exercise. We're also the people, what she said, she calls Jonathan, we have a 24/7 incident hotline. So when local governments are being impacted by incidents, we can assist them, offer guidance. So we'll kind of get into all that, but I just wanted to mention, I'm really proud of the team and glad we're here with y'all today. And I also heard there's some people that traveled pretty far to be here today, so we really appreciate that. And okay, so for the agenda, that's pretty much it for Module 1. We did the introduction, setting the stage. Next, we have understanding the threat landscape, and then we'll move into Module 3, practical cybersecurity measures. Module 4 is incident response and management exercise. Number 5 is planning for security incidents, and then conclusion and next steps. Next up, Module 2.
Awesome. Thank you so much,
Back over to
Jeremy.
Jonathan.
I'll kind of kick us off here. I really like this slide because trying to marry water operations or emergency management or transportation operations and cybersecurity, it's always difficult to find the overlap. But I really think, drinking water, wastewater, you have your very, very specific functions. but cybersecurity has them too. So we talk about system design and hardening, making sure that our risks are managed, making sure that our services are available. Talk about business process resilience and things of these, making sure that we can rally the troops and respond to a cybersecurity incident when necessary. But thinking about it, critically, we think about, we need the systems to function, right? You have customers who who have an expectation of having water come out of their taps. We need to have them to be reliable. They need to be able to work when it's 108 degrees or when it's freezing. If you have customer data, payers data, it needs to be confidential. They have a trust relationship with you. And then we want to be operating a safe measure. I think operational safety is a little bit different than cybersecurity. That's kind of the transition from cybersecurity to operational technology, where we have that introduction of safety. We want to make sure that we're doing things in a safe manner. So when we look at the cybersecurity landscape, we always think of who's attacking us, who are the people who are trying to get into our systems, who are the people pushing those phishing emails that we know not to click on. So we usually broke them into 4 groups. We usually break them into 4 groups, but we added another group for this presentation. First, we think about our nuisance hackers. These are our, we used to call them script kiddies, but nuisance hackers is kind of what we use now. And these are people who are doing things for fun. They're defacing websites with kits they find on the internet, just for giggles. And then we think about our insider threats. Insider threats can be malicious or accidental. They can be a disgruntled employee who has permissions that allow them to erase set points in your system or leak confidential documents. Or you just have someone who makes a mistake. We have the group we're seeing more and more of, we call hacktivists. These are individuals who have a political statement they want to make. So you'll see them do a denial of service attack to say that they took down this website. You have organized crime. These individuals, of course, are all about financial gain. These are your ransomware threat actors that are encrypting your data, trying to hold it hostage so that you have to pay them. And the best way to, get around having to pay is planning and building a strong system. And then we have our big concern, our state-sponsored or advanced persistent threat. These are the big nations that want to use cyber for geopolitical leverage, espionage, and to steal intellectual property. They're the most difficult to find in your systems, and they are a constant challenge that the nation faces. So I'm going to ask Richard to talk about what are some common attacks and how do we work through them. Richard?
All right, well, some of you may be familiar with some of these terms up here, but these are the types of cyber attacks that you may see. You guys already mentioned that you've already experienced phishing emails and things like that to try to compromise your systems. Those are fairly common right up here on top. But you're also going to be facing things like website defacements and things like that. So doxing could be personal or could be against your organization, the individuals, the leadership within your organizations. Doxing is basically revealing information. Maybe it might be their public address or their personal address or where they live to try to intimidate them for whatever purposes. We're seeing things like malware, which is software designed to either compromise or destroy particular systems within your organizations. In particular, we also see things like remote access Trojans. Remote access Trojans are software programs that are designed to allow attackers to either come in and compromise your systems remotely over the internet so they can get in and exfiltrate data or just basically ruin your operations and shut down things within your networks. Supply chain attacks could be against your physical supply chain that prepares your organizations for their operations, but also the software that you use in order to make your organizations run and work. Crypto miners, I don't know if you are familiar with those. That's basically an abuse of resources. It's not necessarily stealing cryptocurrency from you or your organizations, but it's basically using the resources within your organizations to do crypto crime, or basically stealing from other organizations, but it's basically an abuse of your IT resources within your organization. Probably what you're going to be most familiar with, or at least experience the most, is denial of service or ransomware. I hate to admit it, but one of the organizations that I worked for was hit with ransomware back in 2019, just prior to the COVID pandemic, so we got a double whammy. We had to go through operations and basically try to restore our entire IT infrastructure over the course of 60 days. Now, depending on the size of your organizations, it may be less or more, but just realize ransomware is one of those things that can be really devastating to your organization. So you got to be careful and make sure you implement the right protection measures within your networks, and look out for some of the things like 0 days or exploits or vulnerabilities within systems that do not have proper measures or protections against. So 0 days are a big one. We often try to notify organizations ahead of time to let them know that, hey, you need to take these additional steps or protections on your network to make sure that nobody exploits your operations. So the ones in yellow are kind of the things that I think we believe are more common that you will probably see within utilities, website defacements, phishing. Phishing is probably the initial way that most of these attacking groups or attackers are going to try to exploit your networks. They're going to send an email of some kind, and they're going to look to see if you can provide credentials. So you need to make sure you're training your employees, okay, what to look for. And we're going to show examples of that in a minute. Website defacements, those are things that happen quite frequently. But again, denial of service and ransomware are the big things that we want you to be looking out for. This right here is an example of phishing. Phishing, for those of you who don't know, is just really social engineering to try to get you to reveal a password or an account, or basically get you to try to log in. We've seen this against a lot of local government entities, particularly to try to change their maybe payroll information and affect operations that way. But in your case, it's just to try to compromise an account or password to get that initial foot in the door, okay? So you got to pay attention to what things look like. Sometimes they'll use things that you may use in your personal life, like Google Forms. They'll try to get you to reveal a personal password just to get, again, like I said, that initial access into your system. So again, harvesting credentials, you really got to make sure you're training your employees to look for what's out of the ordinary, is what I usually tell people. Are you expecting an email from this particular entity? A lot of times we train our staff, particularly when they have a problem with their password or when somebody is asking for their password. We normally try to tell them ahead of time, like, look, that's not the proper way. We'll request information. If somebody asks you for your password, know who to talk to within your organization. Know who to talk to is particularly maybe a IT administrator or a service desk. If you have that within your organization, have a proper procedure in place to figure out how to do that.
Richard, before you move on the phishing, spear phishing, I mentioned there's all kinds of free resources we have. So our Network Security Operations Center, we have the Cyber Operations team. And you guys, if you're, whoever said I know enough to not click, sometimes, they're just getting better and better, right? So sometimes it's kind of hard to tell. We have a link to this, but there's a team that if something looks suspicious, if you send it to them, they will do the analysis and tell you whether it's legit or not, and they'll give you feedback. And they'll also glean out what we call IOCs, indicators of compromise. and then that will then get loaded in to protect the state network. I get that you guys aren't on the state network, but it protects TCEQ and all the other state agencies. But the main point is that it's a free service. So if you're not sure if something doesn't look right, see something, say something, that whole thing, you can report it to our cyber ops folks, and that's kind of a free service they provide. So I just wanted to mention that. It's in the informational resources later in the slide, how to contact them, but I just kind of wanted to mention it right here.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. We definitely try to share information. So anything you guys report to us and our Network Security Operations Center, that information isn't necessarily shared from who the entity sent it from, but actually what the attack is. So that actually helps other entities down the line to avoid, phishing attacks and things like that. So website defacements, Jonathan covered this a little bit, and we'll show you a couple more examples, but we're seeing a lot of this more and more, particularly in the light of what's going on geopolitically in the world. So if you're paying attention, Israel and Iran are going back and forth, so we're seeing a lot of this happen to different entities throughout the state. We've seen, regardless of how big or large you are, groups that are affiliated or will take a side will tend to target government entities just simply because they know that you don't have the resources or the expertise to protect yourself. So just be on the lookout for things like this. You're going to see more and more of this activity as these conflicts escalate. I talked a little bit about distributed denial of service attacks. This is just basically overwhelming your IT resources, your websites with either network traffic, and they're basically making the particular resource, a website or a server or a computer, unusable to anyone. So that could be your operators within your organization, or it could be the public trying to reach your particular website. The whole intent is to make sure that resource is unavailable. And you may have seen different types of examples out in the public. You may need to talk with whoever your service provider that may be offering service to you, if they have any additional protections. I know if you're a state entity, there are some things that the state can do, but also, we can, kind of give you guidance on what additional steps you can take to protect yourself. But basically, if you have firewalls or other type of network protection devices in place, you may have to look at hardening those. Make sure you're beefing up those to prevent distributed denial of service attacks from happening. So I talked a little bit about ransomware. Like I said, the organization that I was with was hit back in 2019. It was not fun. We had to restore operations, and that's part of the reason I met Jonathan and Jeremy and Dennis. They actually came and helped our organization, and I got hooked up with them and figured this is what I want to do. We got hit with ransomware, and basically what they'll do is they'll encrypt the files and systems within your network. So they compromised an account, got in, and they started moving laterally within the network, and they started infecting different systems throughout our organization. So this again is one of those awareness activities, and make sure you're educating your employees. Be very cautious and careful about what you're clicking on the internet. You really need to make sure that they're not downloading applications that they shouldn't be using on work systems. And if you can have an authorized list of applications, that would probably be best. But it's if you can implement security controls within your organization to prevent things from being installed, that also might help. We often will talk about this little concept here, least privilege. This is a concept that a lot of organizations, they understand, but they don't necessarily implement because of the resources they have on site. And I understand that certain organizations, they have to allow numerous employees within their organization to have administrative access to their systems, but if you can limit the amount of authority people have to install programs and things like that, you can prevent ransomware from impacting you. We also have a program at DIR to help entities with their endpoint protection software. This is what you might be familiar with is antivirus protection, but it's now evolved into something more to prevent ransomware infections from occurring. But make sure you're testing your security software on your endpoint systems. So a lot of times we see ransomware will infect networks and infect systems, and they'll have a certain software application that's designed to protect them, but it hasn't been working or hasn't been configured properly. So we have some recommendations on that. Another thing you can do here is make sure you have backups, and we'll probably go through that in the tabletop exercise, but make sure you're testing your backups of your systems. Oftentimes when you get infected with ransomware, one of the only options that you may have available to you is restoring from backup. You don't want to be trying to test and make sure your backups are working after you got the ransomware infection, okay? Because some variants of ransomware will actually go after your backup systems as well. So make sure you have them configured properly, you test them regularly, and you're checking them to make sure they are operational. Also, you could be operating differently. So a lot of the guidance that we're going to be giving you is just general suggestions. If you have specific questions or comments, you can always bring that up to us offline, and we can talk about that. But we'll have at the end of this presentation contact information where you can reach us specifically to broach those particular subjects. On the topic of ransomware, I didn't really cover this, but a lot of ransomware groups are going to target you regardless of who you are and what operations you're performing. They will ask for a ransom in the form of money or Bitcoin. In our particular case, or at least the case with my organization, they asked for over, I think it was $1.2 million. Now, I think some of your organizations might not have that kind of money. So just realize the attackers that do this type of stuff, they don't care. They don't care what you do. They don't care how much money you have. They're going to try to ransom you for whatever they can get, and they will actually try to negotiate, believe it or not, a specific fee or something just to get some money out of you. We've actually seen organizations that got impacted get contacted by these attackers, and they are foreign nationals in other countries. This particular group was Russian, so they had a very thick Eastern European accent, and they started trying to negotiate a particular fee. They went from $1 million down to $500,000, all the way down to so they will try to contact you and ask for money or Bitcoin. So the next couple of slides are just going over spear phishing and phishing. Spear phishing is a targeted social engineering email against a particular target. Phishing in general is just, they're blasting it out there just to see if anybody's going to get hooked. Basically, it usually comes in the form of an email that looks legitimate. So pay attention to what a normal email would look like and who you may interact with. If you interact with the public, obviously it's going to be different. But the unknowing victim will often be lured to either a website that looks familiar to them or something that looks legitimate. And the attacker is either going to try to collect the credentials of the individual in order to get, like I said, that initial foothold within your network or on your system. So they do this to either access the system, put malware on your system so they can continue their operations and move laterally within your network, or they can just harvest data off of the system that they compromise, and they're looking for that initial access to see what they can collect and gather from you. Then they'll either, like I said, steal your credentials, go to the website, impersonate you.
Richard, could you go back and talk about MFA and how this helps prevent?
Yeah, so if you haven't already implemented it, MFA is what's called multi-factor authentication. This is an additional layer of protection that authenticates you as who you are. It's usually in the form of either a PIN or a token or something that you may have. This is always good, and we actually recommend this to implement because a lot of times people who perpetrate phishing attacks will try to just go for that easy target. They'll look for that initial access. If you have multi-factor authentication, they're not going to have the additional details that's going to prove that they are who they say they are. Oftentimes we'll use MFA on our email systems with the state, so we know we have to enter in a password, but we also have to enter in additional details like a PIN or some other type of credential. So if you can implement this shuts down, I don't know the actual percentage, but a majority of phishing attacks that may happen in your organization. So if you have an IT administrator or a service provider and they haven't implemented MFA, you might really want to explore that particular option. It's not that difficult to set up on most modern email and communication systems.
I'm sure most of y'all, whether it's like Amazon or social media or banking sites, you know, when you set up MFA, there's a lot of different factors, but a lot of times they'll allow you to get like a PIN that's texted to your phone, SMS.
Yep.
There's other factors such as biometric and things. So it might seem complicated, but I think most people at this point have interacted with some kind of MFA system, maybe in their personal life, even if they don't have it in the work systems. It really can be a very significant way to protect yourself. So whether it's through Office 365 or other systems, if you have MFA, that can be the thing that kind of protects you from the attacker actually getting into your network. So well said.
Yeah. And as Jeremy mentioned, you probably have experienced this with your personal banking and things like that. So it is not completely secure. Just realize it's an additional measure that you can implement within your organizations to help you. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about how cyber attacks occur.
Hey, we're right at about like 10 o'clock, so I know we said we were going to probably do like a quick break at the top of the hour, so I think this would be a great time to give everyone a quick 5 minutes or so, stretch your legs, use the facilities, and we'll be back in here. Does that sound good?
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Richard.